You're listening to Your Rivers Are Wrong, the podcast. My name is Merle. I'm here with my good friend Dante, and we're here to build worlds and tell their stories. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Good morning, or evening, or afternoon, whenever you may be. Welcome back to the Your Rivers Are Wrong podcast. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Dante.
And I'm the other host. My name is Merle.
And we're here, as we are every week, to talk about the wonderful whimsies of world building, the arts and aesthetics of setting up a setting and telling stories born from it. We're back at it.
Awesome. So smooth.
So smooth, so clean every time. Mm-hmm. Never had to repeat the intro more than a couple times. As of now, we're at episode 22. I don't know how long the season's going to be, but this is around the halfway point, isn't it?
Is it? Right. Oh, right. Yeah, because last time we did 14, I think. 14 right. Episodes, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense.
No idea how long this season's going to be. But gosh, it feels like we just started season 2, and now we're already, 8 episodes in? That's crazy to me.
I guess so, yeah. I feel like because we just do it all the time. Like we do it every week. True. That's pretty, that's a lot. That's a lot of podcasting.
We're also closing in on the 6-month mark, actually. I think we started around Christmas Eve.
I think so too, yeah.
Yeah, that was our first episode, Christmas Eve. So in 2 or 3 weeks, we'll be half a year old. We'll be celebrating our half birthday.
We're so tiny.
So small.
So small.
Yeah.
I like it.
How's your week been? Anything to catch up on?
Pretty good. My plant has a new leaf, and it is not pink. Oh, everybody
is
cry.
That the one that we...
Yes.
And the audience said, as you hold up the sign, all together now.
And go. Yeah. Exactly. No, I mean...
Is that the leaf that we were talking about last week?
Yeah. I feel like this is the eternal thing with this plant that everybody wants it to be pink so bad, which is why it's so fancy. And then it almost never gets a pink leaf. So I have to laugh about it myself. But it's the moment where you wait for 3 weeks. I sent you the photo when it was still unfurled and it was 5 days or something. And I was like, come on. And I can't rush it because otherwise I'll break it. So that's a nice plant update for you.
Got it.
And as you can hear, I also have a wonderful cold this week. Oh. So now I'm able to talk and stuff and not tear up every time because of the reverberation in my head. But yeah, last few days have been a bit much. But
that's fair.
It's getting better. So, I'm almost out of it. But as I said right before we started recording, I'm very nice and nasal sounding today.
Love that. Right in your ears, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh.
How about you, Dante?
So wait, this plant that you bought online, we have to get, because we're now 3 episodes into talking about these plants. You bought this plant online. Uh-huh. It's supposed to be pink leafed, right?
Well, partially, yes, if you're lucky.
If you're lucky, so it's like a lottery system where sometimes your plant ends up pink.
Kind of, yeah. It depends on the variegation of certain leaves, I think. So you're usually pretty good if your plant already starts with 1 or 2 leaves that are partially pink. But it's not it's never the case that it's more than half of the leaves are pink. That's not a thing. It's very cool if you have 1 leaf that's entirely pink or 1 leaf that's half pink,
Interesting. All right. Good to know. Mm-hmm. What else? What do we usually talk? Oh, the wallet situation.
Got that out of the way.
Okay.
This is the last episode we're going to be talking about this.
This arc is definitely over. Yeah. So 2 weeks passed, I believe.
Yeah.
Episode 20? It'd be 20. Yeah, episode 20. This is a little caper that starts at the beginning of the episode where I talk about the wallet that I lost on the previous night. And I get a notification of where it is. Mm-hmm. Mid-podcast, right in the middle, while we're talking. So it was 2 weeks out, and I was able to finally get to the lost and found in the city and pick up my wallet.
Hey.
After a whole week of waiting.
Congrats.
It was a strangely tense room. I walk in, it's super empty. Go to the person at the front, and I'm like, hey, I'm here for a wallet. They're like, all right, what's your number? Do you have an ID? And I'm like, well, that's in the wallet, but I brought my passport. Right. And they're like, yes, good. Thank you.
Wow, I would have so not think about that. I would probably go there without anything and be like, hi, can I get the thing that I lost? And they're like, do you have ID? And I'm like, wait, no.
You have my
Hold on. how does this work now? Yeah. Good on you for that.
So yeah, I was there for like 10, 15 minutes, but I got my wallet back.
Congrats.
And now I'm dealing with the aftermath of all of my cards coming in the mail, fully replaced, and throwing out my old ones. Yeah, big old mess.
Useful? Question mark? Sure.
That's fair. All right, we can jump in, I guess.
Sure.
Cool. With this podcast, if you're new here, welcome first and foremost. It's great to have you around.
Yeah.
Every week, we both bring a topic to the table relating to world building or storytelling. We don't know what each other's topics are. That's kind of the fun in it. To this week, I believe you're starting us off. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is correct.
Awesome.
Yeah. I want to talk with you about quests.
Quests.
Maybe just like diving right in.
Ooh,
I feel like
okay.
we never discussed this before, even though it's like very much a sort of central theme of literally every story ever. It's not even a theme. It's like the whole thing. Yeah. So I was like, we never talked about this. And it's like a very, specifically in fantasy, a very obvious thing to talk about. So I just want to right away just start off with you, Dante, and ask you, what do you think makes a good, solid quest? What's the important elements of a good quest?
My topic for, not to get ahead of myself, my topic for later in this podcast
Spoilers.
is very, very closely related.
Oh,
and I'm going to
okay.
do my absolute best not to bring it up, but it's going to be very hard for
Definitely,
me.
yeah. Divert us into another part
Yeah,
of the
we
topic
got to
if we
dwell
get
on
to
quests for a bit. What makes a good quest? Wow. All right. The first thing that comes to mind, at least for me, two things. It has to be important to the person getting on the quest, and it has to be entertaining for the reader. I think that's the two big things, kind of like a one is beyond the fourth wall kind of requirement.
Oh, right.
That it has to be interesting and entertaining for the person like witnessing it, and it has to be like important to the person going on it, you know?
Yeah, that's fair.
We need that conviction, a reason for them to kind of put themselves out there and pass through difficult situations like Dora chasing down whatever she's looking for, you know?
Yeah.
Every day she pulls out her magical scroll.
That life and death quest we all want. Yeah.
Taps into the magical parchment that tells her which direction she should go, what two trials she should go under. Every single episode.
Whoa.
A trooper to the nth degree.
Oh my God. Wow. I never thought about Dora as like a fantasy quest. And now my brain has rewired. It's wild.
It might possibly be the simplest and most straightforward quest on TV anywhere. Have you seen the Dora movie?
I was literally just going to bring that up. Do you know how good it is, Dante? I mean, it's not perfect. It's very much still a kids movie. But if you expect nothing because it is a Dora adaptation, it's pretty fucking funny.
She's so good.
What's it called? Like the City of Gold, I think? Or City...
Probably something like
I don't know.
Like
Dora
that.
and the... There's like one movie of this. You'll figure it out.
There was definitely a board meeting where they're all sat around a big wooden table, all in really nice suits and ties, and they just have a single sign right in the front of a big old 10 by 10 art of Dora. And they're like,
yes.
All right, we know what we're doing here, right? Everyone together? Yes.
Are we on the same page? Yeah.
We're making a movie about a 5-year-old in a computer going on an adventure and we're turning that into a multi-million-dollar production.
Yeah.
Everyone understand? Yes. All right.
Yeah, that's definitely how it went. I feel like there's... Honestly, this Dora movie, I think in my review on Letterboxd, which is like a film nerd review site, I think I wrote like, even though it's not my favorite movie, this is like the best adaptation of the hardest series ever to adapt. It's almost like really hard to adapt Dora in like a nice kind of way, I feel. Specifically because she's not played by a 5-year-old. She's played by like, I don't know, a 15-year-old or something, or I don't know, maybe even 20-year-old. I don't know.
A 20-something pretending to be a teenager.
Okay.
No doubt. Yeah.
She has like the youthful look, which I guess is why she was cast also. But
but she also has the Dora bowl cut, which throws everything off.
That's very fair. Yeah. I mean, how else are you going to represent Dora? I mean...
And I know this is like a tangent. I'm kind of dodging the question here.
I do not regret talking about this movie.
It's the best I could ever imagine a Dora movie to be. Like,
right? It's so quirky. It has the Dora feel to it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so hard.
And it has like the replay value. Like I would watch that again just for fun. Like it's not like, okay, that was silly.
That could be worse. Yeah.
Yeah, I was genuinely entertained at multiple points in the movie.
It was very entertaining. Yeah.
Yeah, and it really had like an if Indiana Jones
was 5-year-old.
if
And
everybody around
monkey.
Indiana Jones thought he was, kind of unique, the whole movie,
every
they're like,
hero's journey ever.
everybody was like, we all know Dora has these things she does, right? And everybody was like, yeah, but that's just Dora, right? Just kind of bouncing around.
Yeah.
But yeah. So what makes a good quest? I think that was the original question.
Okay. So we got like engagement from the audience.
Yeah.
You have engagement from or for the main protagonist.
Right.
And then you have the actual physical thing, like there's an object or there's a destination or a mystery that's got to be uncovered.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you think about?
The thing about it is that quest is so all-encompassing. Like quest could just mean the objective of the book, what the person is trying to accomplish. But when I hear quest, like specifically the word quest, if they use quest in the book, how about that? If they use quest in the book, it's usually some kind of journey. They got to leave the comfort of whatever their situation is, and they got to go out and do something, find something, like be someone.
Yeah, that's pretty well said. Yeah.
It's very much goal at the end of the mountain, go grab it kind of thing,
Yeah, go grab it is a good summary.
Yeah. Quest isn't, I mean, it could be, but quest isn't usually like find a date for prom night, it's, which it could be. It really could be. You watch, what is it? 10 Things I Hate About You? Like that could be very questy, that has a very questy feel to it.
Sure. Maybe the whole thing about whether or not it feels like a quest is also that it has certain steps to it or something.
Right.
The example of Dora is, of course, very silly, but it's also pretty true. Like, there's always like this 3-step structure. Like, first we have to get over the bridge, and then we have to, I don't know, go find the red house, and then we have to talk to the person in the red house, and then you're finished. And then, congrats, you completed the quest.
Right.
And in video games, it's also a quite literal thing because you have to be able to sort of tick boxes on the way or like gain achievement points or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that kind of structure is, I feel like, naturally more leaning towards a journey of sorts because you literally pass things or do things or need to, make the miles for a journey to finish. And I think that's much harder to either be a quest or to realize that it's a quest when it's not a journey or when it's just in one place or when it's something like find a date for the prom. Like, what if it's in just one house or you have to uncover something, I don't know, within one house or something? That's also can be a journey, but it's harder to recognize it as a quest, I guess.
I mean, like murder mystery movies, like that Clue movie.
Yeah, that's
when
kind
they're trying to find out who died.
Alternative, yeah.
That's not a quest movie, right? Because everybody's in one place. They're all trying to learn something.
Yeah.
It doesn't evoke what the word quest does. And when I hear the word quest, I feel like either you have taken it upon yourself to find something or someone has sent you out.
Yeah.
You're given like a grand decree, like go forth and go into the lands of
the unknown,
like East Valai, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I guess a big thing, right, is how does a quest factor into? I guess the way I think about it when I hear the word quest is like in the context of building a world specifically for like a D&D campaign. It's like the best thing you could do for your party is to send them on a quest, right? To give them a reason to venture out from wherever they started, to explore the world that you've created, and to find something very, very important or do something very, very important.
Yeah.
It's kind of the classic start to any fantasy story. Find the MacGuffin that saves the world, defeat the villain at the top of the mountain, fight grand beasts along the way, and learn about this fantastical world. There's a lot of evocative visuals that happen, like where you go and what you see.
Yeah, and I think also the idea of a journey or a travel in order to finish the quest is also, well, partly because, you need to find things along the way that you can finish, or you have to have sub goals in between that quest. Side quests, yeah, that too, yeah. If it takes a little bit of time before you finish something, there's always going to be a sort of, I mean, if you do it right, development of the main protagonist or of the party, or because it takes you time or effort, or you have to learn something new, or you have to find people that are hard to find, etc., you're going to also, in the process, learn things about yourself. I think that's also very relevant because a quest is very much part of story structure as well. It's also how do you give time to your players, or how do you make them connect, or the characters connect, and where lies the value in your story. I think that all kind of ties in pretty neatly
I think the growth of the quester is very important, right? Like what you said, like
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
to see how they've changed from beginning to end, kind of like from their demeanor, their age, their worldview, what they wear, what they wield, things like that. All that changes on the process of a quest, right?
Yeah, for sure. And also, we're not even talking about the thing of, I don't know, the like sword in the stone that's like only a worthy wielder can unsheath this blade from the stone that have thousands of years, etc. Right? So
yeah, your voice carries that really well.
Thanks. Yeah. I'm a natural. But yeah, in some quests, it's even almost like baked into the formula that your character has to change in that way. Like if you're not worthy, if you haven't grown, or if you're not as well developed a person, you will not be able to wield this anyway. So the journey is almost necessary because in the beginning, your character is just like new and like, oh yay, I love quests and I'm a responsible person, but I'm also like 12 years old and just learning about the world.
Right.
So if you then need to be like the wielder of this holy sword that no one else has been able to like take out of the mountain for years and years, there needs to be a sort of process almost happening. And that's quite a literal example, of course, but I feel like pretty often quests tie into these kind of objects or necessary development that are part of an object or that are only if you're powerful enough, you'll be able to finish this quest, right?
Yeah. It's what we said, like the growth is very important. Like what happens to them is what makes a story so interesting. If a character stays static the entire way through, there are stories like that. I guess, don't quote me on this, but Don Quixote is very stalwart in his stances and beliefs all the way through the reading. So he doesn't change too much. And I'm thinking of like a Monty Python, Quest of the Holy Grail. Character growth isn't like the biggest thing. It's mostly for like comedy and stuff. And
yeah, of course.
Basically the sights and sounds you see along the way is what makes it a proper quest, right?
Yeah.
I think when you boil it down, at least when you're writing a story, the purpose of a quest is to tell this fantastical story. Is to kind of be able to belabor the highs and lows of a journey. It evokes kind of like a campfire feel of something you tell to generations after you've completed it. Right?
Right, yeah.
A quest is like a story worth telling, perhaps is the best way I can phrase that. I mean, I quite enjoy it. I love reading. I kind of like my litmus test for like a good anime, for starters, is figuring out what the quest is, right? Like waiting 2-3 episodes in to realize like what the journey is going to look like. Yeah, like what's the purpose of the story? Like wait for the prologue to be done and like for the character to go through some traumatic event because I want to know where they're going, right? I want to know like what they're about to experience and is that worth sticking around to watch or read about?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like that's also pretty big in sort of storytelling rules, big quotation marks, because what does that even mean? But I feel like very often it comes up, let's put it that way, that you need to as quickly as possible move from the sort of static character to the character in motion, by which I mean like the current situation of the character, like the one we start with, you know, they're having, I don't know, dinner with their family. And the main quest or the starting point is, their house is getting burned down by raiders and now they need to find the raiders and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So if you spend like 3 chapters just in their house, just chilling, at some point it's going to be super boring. So it's most interesting if you go as quickly as possible to the moment of truth, I guess, or the moment of change, because then your story starts evolving.
I think right before a quest, if you're trying to pitch it in your story, you have to convince the reader that to be invested in the main character, right? They have to experience something or witness something that makes them worthy of following through this quest. Like if you just jump into a story of this random guy with spiky blonde hair, ready to journey out into the world and do things, you could be like, okay, so why? Like, I don't really care. Like, who is this guy and what does he do and why do I want to follow him?
Yeah.
Like, you kind of got to prove the value of the quester right at the start, I think, or at least reveal it early on in the story so people can give a reason to root for this person.
I mean, very often the sort of start of why we start to care for the quester, as you put it so nicely, is, I think, the entire fact that they decide to go on the quest, that they decide to sort of embark on the journey. Because very often that is already a sort of heroic deed, like the fact that they are, to stay with my previous example, like the fact that they're not just like, oh, well, fuck, my house burned down, I don't know what to do, but they're like actively trying to change it or trying to find vengeance or whatever. They have a sort of purpose to them now, both because the quest gifts it to them, but also because they engage. They don't have to engage. They're not obliged to do anything, but because the story allows them to sort of fill in that gap. and decide to change, we already, I think, start caring a little bit because of that decision.
Yeah. It's the sell, right? It's the sell of the story.
Yeah,
It's
I
the
guess so.
pitch
Yeah.
that the writer gives the reader right at the start. And I guess my last thought on this topic in terms of like quests or just adventuring in general, one of the biggest hooks to set an example, isekai manga. Are you familiar with the term?
No.
Isekai? Basically, it's a reference to, gosh, I don't know the literal translation, but it's like a new life or a transformation.
Oh, okay.
Where a character from a separate world ends up in a world completely foreign to them. It's kind of like a very specific fantasy genre in manga, where like someone from a modern present day world ends up in like medieval times and they have to use their present knowledge to navigate it.
Oh,
you know?
okay. Right.
One of the most entertaining things about witnessing a quest is not only seeing how the main character interacts with this new world, but also how the new world meets the main character. There's might be a new, fresh take that they have that the world like isn't ready for or isn't accustomed to.
Yeah.
And this kind of strange perspective or outlook
Right.
makes relatively normal interactions suddenly very unique and unusual and exciting to witness. Like what does it look like when there's this very specific manga called Exterminator, where it's like a guy who cleans houses or like exterminates pests from a house ends up in medieval times, and he attributes all of his futuristic techniques to just cleaning out sewers and dungeons and stuff, and people think he's a magician when he's just like a regular dude.
Wait, that's the funniest premise. I heard about this name though, like the Exterminator, but I never thought it was literally like that he exterminates for a living. Like that's his like the lamest job, and that's what the anime's about. That's awesome.
It's like a video game setting where people level depending on how much they've killed, and since he just naturally
so good
by
at
default kills like thousands of mice and rats, he levels really, really fast.
Amazing.
So he's super strong for no reason.
And everyone just adores him because he can kill the thing so well. Nice. I like that. Yeah.
There's a lot of that stuff. So yeah, questing, fantastic entry to any fantasy story or any genre story in general. Give a reason for the reader to be excited, to be invested, you know, something worthy of witnessing and telling back for like ages to come, as they say.
Yeah, for sure. And if you do it well, then both the world and your character will have like the perfect intro. So I think because they sort of riff off of each other in the starting hook of a quest, it's a good opportunity to get things going.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Do you have any recommendations for a good quest for people to tap into or read, or something that you very much enjoyed?
Ooh. Well, the one thing that we didn't talk about, but that I found a very nice example, even though it's not the most traditional quest, is the movie Arrival. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's
never heard of it.
Very awesome. And I don't know how much I should say about this. In general, like the sort of quest or what makes it interesting about this is that the main character, who is a scientist, a sort of literary or like language scientist, I should say, communication scientist, and they get asked to participate in a very sort of high-risk government secret kind of thing because there's a very large stone of sorts, like literally as high as an apartment building.
Sure.
Nobody knows what it is, but it just came from the sky and sort of hovers now. And nobody knows what's going on. The whole world is kind of freaking out. Like, is this a sort of alien ship, or is this just a random, like, is this an attack, or are they just, you know, nobody understands it. And I think the interesting part about that is that everyone kind of understands the necessity or the importance of knowing what this is in terms of like secret magical object. I mean, it kind of fits the bill, I guess.
Right.
But no one knows what it is. So no one has an objective or a sort of evil plan or scheme to this, as far as we know. Like the whole movie just talks about understanding what it is and whether or not we should fight it. And I think that's a very cool sort of version of a quest, even though you might not think about it as a quest. So, you know, you should definitely, that's a big recommendation.
Okay. Adding Arrival to our list of recommended.
Awesome.
Awesome. That's really cool. Okay.
Let's switch up to yours.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is, again, just like last week, a perfect tie-in.
Okay.
When you said quest, the first thing that I thought of, obviously, and the first thing that a lot of people, specifically in the D&D community, would dwell on when you say quest is the second part of that tabletop RPG. Today, I want to talk about dragons.
Aha! Very
the final
good
boss
fit.
at the end of many, many fantasy campaigns, many, many stories. The dragon, I find, without fail, actually. In every campaign I've run, in a lot of games that I have set up for other players, without fail, no, regardless of genre or quest or storyline, the dragon fight is something they always love. Like there's something so perfect about the dragon fight and the dragon in its essence. So
yeah, for sure.
Gosh, where do I even preface? Before, I spoke about earlier that I had a phase where I really loved like urban fantasy, like supernatural powers, gaining them in a city setting when everybody else is normal, watching yourself develop in that field. But before that, since I started being able to read letters to that point in that shift, I loved dragons. I loved everything dragons. If there was anything that I would watch without fail, it was something with a dragon in it.
Awesome.
So there was Shaolin Showdown. There was Dragon Tales. I played Spyro the Dragon. I read Dragon Riders of Pern. I read Aragon. If it had any semblance of a dragon somewhere in it,
you knew about it.
I would play it. Like Spyro the Dragon is the only game I perfected like 100% everything.
That says something.
That game, Year of the Dragon.
It's the purple dragon,
fantastic.
right? The cute one.
It's a purple dragon, yeah. But I played hours and hours and hours of it. And when I was like 11 or 12, I perfected that game. Like there was nothing left to do.
Do you play as Spyro the Dragon? Is that the main character?
You play as Spyro.
Oh,
yeah,
cute.
He's the purple one who runs around and headbutts.
Yeah, I
things.
was. Oh, that's cute. I never played it, but I was like, is this your character then? Or do you are you friends with him? Or is that the end goal of the game? But yeah, you actually play. That's fun.
Yeah. Gosh, I could list a dozen other things that just, if it had the word dragon somewhere in it, I would absolutely
Bet you knew about it.
indulge. Because it's kind of like the mascot of fantasy settings, right? It's it's the face of like, of course, medieval fantasy. It's the face of like Chinese folklore. Mm-hmm. The origins of it, I'm pretty sure, are still ambiguous. Like they don't know where the first dragon was spotted. There's the development of the Western dragon, because there was a lot of like
I love how you said that like as if they actually were there.
Well, it's kind of strange, right? That it would develop in two parts of the world at the same time. Like the Serpentine,
that's kind of
like
cool.
legends of like Norse folklore and the Western medieval start of the dragon, and then there's the long of like Chinese folklore and the Ryu
the like
of
ribbon like
Japan.
One. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the long ones, and they combine.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
One of my favorite little graphics is there's like a little like flow chart, like a family tree of all the different kinds of dragons, depending on like how many hands they have, if their hands are attached to their wings. Like very specifically, like there's a dragon that has 4 legs and wings, and then there's the wyvern, which is like one of my favorites, where it has the wings attached to the front arms, and that's kind of the signifier. Yeah. And then there's worms, yeah.
I thought the wyvern was like the small version, like a baby dragon, basically. But maybe that's not true. Is it similar?
It's very specifically that biological trait where it has the wings attached to it. So like,
wow, the more you know.
All the dragons in Game of Thrones, they're not dragons, they're wyverns.
Oh,
it's a whole thing.
Okay, okay. I mean, of course you know about this. I'm not surprised after the like list of dragon things that you watched so religiously.
I do. I do, in fact, have my biggest recommendation on this podcast is Drifting Dragons.
Nice. Oh, yeah, that's
I have
right.
a YouTube channel called The Wintry Wyvern. I'm really invested into dragons.
Yeah, it makes sense now that I think about it. Yeah.
Biggest fanboy.
No, I love it.
Did I pick this topic just to ramble for 15 to 20 minutes about one of my favorite?
I mean, don't we do that for every topic? I don't blame you. That's literally fine. This is what our podcast is.
Yeah. So I brought this up mostly because I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And because I feel like we'd be remiss to have a podcast about world building and not talk about the second D in D&D. Eventually we'll talk about the first D.
I was going to say, like, we didn't even talk
later.
about the first D. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get there.
We'll make it up. Yeah.
So, in your humble, honest opinion, why do people like dragons? What's so special about them? Why have they persisted in all sorts of media, even to the modern age?
Okay. I will first answer this pretending to be 8-year-old, because I am in my heart sometimes. And answer
why pretend
in the version of like
we're actually
8-year-olds secretly.
To our audience, we're actually 8-year-olds. This is not something we've been privy to disclose because our own safety. We can't have our identities out there. But we're actually we're 8 years old. We're literally.
I mean, that's how you lose a wallet. Yeah.
Who else would?
Maybe that's why they didn't want to give it to you all the time.
Who else would lose a wallet? Besides an 8-year-old.
Okay. Here's my 8-year-old humble opinion about dragons and why they're awesome. Mm-hmm. Well, one, because they breathe fucking the elements.
Yeah.
Not in the least to say fire, which we devoted like half an episode of because fire's awesome.
Yeah.
So you have like a literal flame-throwing animal that you can sit on if you're lucky that can fly you to places and is like as big as a barn. If that's like not fucking cool, I don't know what is, you know? If it can fly, this is the whole like How to Train Your Dragon appeal to me. It's basically a dog, but it's big and it can like breathe fire or whatever. It's something other.
Yes.
And it can fly and you can sit on it and it's great. It's like when you're a horse girl, when you love flying, when you love like Avatar. This is the sort of culmination of all the things. It's almost obvious to me at this point. But I think if I answer this in a more sort of refined way.
You don't have to. I'm not asking you to, but you can if you want to.
I will do like a smaller version of this.
Sure.
I think it would sort of relate to either like explaining certain things in like important weather patterns or whatever, like cool stuff. There's very often a sort of mythical creature or a god of sorts related to things that happen in nature or in I'm thinking like there must be in Norse folklore someone who was responsible for like the aurora, the like northern lights. Mm-hmm. There must be something about folklore in that, right? Because it's so cool. And I feel dragons are a bit similar in that way of like they are sort of representatives of a thing that that's specifically before we knew planes existed or could exist. They're like the sort of kings of the sky, right? Like we can never be that, and they are, and they're super big and awesome because of it. And I think that's a lot of the appeal to me.
Yeah.
Of dragons. Yeah.
We've had a whole episode on fire, as you said. We had a whole episode on flight.
And on weather. Yeah. We keep going.
So a creature that does all of these things that we're just naturally very excited about and very enthralled by.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned How to Train Your Dragon because when that came out, I loved it. I loved
I bet
it.
you did. I loved it too.
It was such a good story. It's still a good story. Like it held up after many decades. And if you watch the first one compared to the third one, the graphic improvement of the movie was just ridiculous.
Yeah, for sure.
It looked so
also,
much nicer.
It was one of the few like movies or animated movies that had like a very good sequel and like third movie. I don't know.
Third movie was great.
Threequel.
Third movie was pretty good.
Sure.
Threequel.
I don't know.
Threequel. I'm sure that's real.
Is that? I don't know. I feel like it should have a name. Maybe nobody ever makes like a threequel because the sequel is so bad. Sorry. Keep going.
That great tangent. That's actually next week's topic, the threequels. We're going to talk about threequels.
Yeah.
I'll put that in my notes.
Check. Dungeons and threequels. You heard it here
Dungeons
first.
and threequels. Yeah. Threequels.
Yeah.
It's
But yeah, it's
actually
really good.
Just a trilogy. Yeah, I would enthusiastically recommend the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy. And it just kind of checked all the boxes for me. It was like young kid finds himself with a fantastical creature, realizes himself along the way. Great twists and turns, actually, especially with the conclusion of like what happens to both of them.
For sure.
And it's just a fantastic premise, and it looks really, really nice. One of the few animated movies I hold over Disney Pixar. It's just like on its own little throne.
It is, yeah, for sure. Also, I was just going to mention, I feel like I missed one thing in my very exciting approach to why dragons are cool. Is because they're real fucking dangerous. Like you can lose your life if you're not careful. Talking about the How to Train Your Dragon, like the thing that I remember most is, well, I guess partly because I'm a graphic design nerd, but also because dragons are like super dangerous. There was this one sort of montage or something where they had like this book and then they showed all the dragons and it said with like, oh God, I forgot the name of the cool one, the dark one.
The
Night something.
Nightwing?
Nightwing?
No, that's
something like that, right?
That's definitely.
Why do I not
I'll
know
look it
this?
up. That's definitely Robin from
Sure.
Nightwing.
Yeah.
Night Fury.
Night Fury. That's what it was.
Yes.
So there was this one picture of the Night Fury, and it just says like super dangerous, never look it up, and hide in your houses when you get a glimpse of this creature. It was kind of a meme
that like he was reading through the book, and every single dragon instruction said like kill on sight.
Oh,
this dragon kill on sight. This dragon kill on sight, or something along those lines. Yeah. There's a innate terror to them. Like it's a sight to behold first and foremost. It's like terrifying to witness and be in the presence of. And then to like have the audacity to try to tame one. Yeah. It's like,
It's, I mean, talking about quests, like that's the ultimate, how do you say it? Like
litmus test of bravery. It's like a...
Yeah. A test of bravery for sure. Think of Critical Role where all the dragons are super terrifying and awesome. And Game of Thrones where like the one, I haven't seen this, so I'm sort of filling this in as I think this happened. But there's the mother of dragons,
I will absolutely
right?
confirm.
So there's like the one person that has like power over dragons and almost no one has. I feel like that's kind of the premise.
Right.
Did I do that right? Yeah. which
Yeah,
is
that's
super
good.
awesome. Like, if dragons are already the most terrifying thing in the world, and then there's one person that can tame the most terrifying thing in the world, that's super dope. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there is no. Okay, I could probably say this. I think this is a safe call. There is no mythical creature that has universally across the world a creature that carries a reputation like a dragon, right?
No, for sure.
There's kind of like a regality to it. There's a power to it. There's power. There's strength in the name of just dragon.
Yeah, for
right?
sure. For sure.
It's carried itself very, very well throughout history. And it's just like the creature that you see so many times growing up that it almost feels like it should be real because of the number of times it's prevalent.
Yeah.
It's like,
sure.
Are you guys sure this thing doesn't exist? Because we heard about it in the East and we heard about it in the West. And like everybody has stories about it, but like it doesn't exist. Are you sure? Are you positive?
Yeah.
I'd be really scared if they do, but I mean,
I think we would probably like be more dead if they existed. Don't you think?
We'd reach a point. There'd be a point in civilization where we and this is a common trope in many stories where humankind finds something strong enough to handle dragons. It's kind of a turning of the era where dragons rule as like the most powerful thing on the planet, and then humans figure out a way to fight them. You know, in Game of Thrones, it was these big ballistas that they made specifically to hunt dragons, and that kind of changed the dragons from the rulers of the land to a scarce, endangered species. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Which is already like in itself another cool trope. Once like terror of the skies, and now there are only a few like mythical ones left that are just super bitter about us existing.
And I love what I love about dragons is that everything I read about them has their own mythos about what they can do and what they can like their limitations and their powers.
Yeah.
Like in some stories, dragons are magical. They can talk to you. They can conjure things on their own.
Yeah.
Dragon tales. I keep going back to it. Just I don't know why I watched that for obviously throughout my entire childhood. And they were just very funny dragons, and one had two heads, and one was Quetzalcoatl, right?
Oh,
I don't know his full name.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Like Quetzal. I didn't realize that was like in
isn't that like the weird
Mayan
sort of
folklore?
Mexican kind of gecko salamander creature?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there were some that could like carry the memory, like in Dungeons and Dragons, very young dragons are imparted the memories of their ancestors. So they eventually learn the
good to know.
They learned that not many DMs use it. It's kind of just a throwaway line, but they gain the memories of their parents. So I remember I gave my friend who's playing in the campaign that I run was insistent on having a baby dragon. And I'm like, if you're going to have a dragon that you eventually want to ride, you're going to have to earn it, right? So it's been like a multi-year arc of him raising this dragon.
Jesus.
And one of the things that they were most afraid of is that they killed the dragon's mother. So
oh God.
Eventually, there would eventually come a time.
The worst start to a relationship with a dragon.
Yeah. It would eventually become a time when the dragon, very young still, would gain this memory of them killing its mom. And they're like, okay, that'll be a problem when we get to it. You know, we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Awful. Yeah, that's going to go so wrong. I feel like every party in D&D almost has to have a player like this. I had one player like this, like my roommate that plays in my home campaign. Mm-hmm. At some point, they fought like a wyvern, it was just a very small dragon because they were low level and I just scaled it down a bit. So it was a tiny one.
Maybe a wormling?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I'm not sure. Something like that.
Sure.
But it was still like a pretty impressive animal, but it was like doable for a level 2 or a level 3 or something, whatever. And she was like, okay, so I need to own this animal. How do I do this? Right. And I was like, are you crazy? Are you sure? The whole quest was that the dragon sort of got lost. Mm-hmm. It was supposed to be in a sort of illegal zoo that was just outside the city. And then the manager from the zoo was like, oh, damn, fuck, we lost this dragon and we're already illegal. No. Like, so we need to like clean this up quick before somebody like realizes that we have an illegal dragon.
Got it.
Worse, that we now don't have an illegal dragon that's somewhere else now and we don't know where it is. So that was
it was
the
bad
quest.
that we had an illegal dragon, but it's worse that
that we had it and we lost it. Yeah, exactly.
Had is the key word.
The whole quest was that they had to bring it back, so it was almost impossible to like keep it, which I was very happy about. I was kind of bittersweet, but I feel like, yeah, if you want to be the owner of dragon, like I feel like you did the right thing by making this like a multi-year investment of time and energy, because that feels what is necessary for owning a dragon.
Yeah, he definitely had to earn it. If he's listening to this podcast, he'd say he'd belabor the amount of trials I put him through just to like raise like what he's eating, where he's resting, how you're training him. A very silly tangent, I guess. There is a module in D&D. I'm not going to say which in case of spoilers. One of the campaigns I ran through where we encountered 3 dragon eggs. And one of our players in the campaign was a dragon sorcerer, so they took this very seriously. And when the eggs hatched, we rolled for it. All 3 eggs were chromatic dragons, which in D&D mean evil.
Oh, right.
So all 3 were eventually going to grow up to be evil dragons. And we were like, guys,
oh no,
we can't let these go into the wild because they'll be dangerous for the towns nearby. But also, we're not going to kill dragons. Like, they're babies. We can't kill these dragons. So there was a very real conversation for an entire... Yeah, for like 2 hours. We truly and honestly discussed, is this where the campaign ends? Where we just stop adventuring and try to train these dragons to be good? Like, do our characters like retire from whatever they're doing to make sure these dragons don't go out into the world evil? And put our like best foot forward, and like it's a really serious conversation.
Interesting.
Like, what do we do here? Because we're not going to kill the babies, and we're not going to release them into the wild. So what's the only choice? Nobody can take care of them but us. And the end
talking
result
about a fucking
was
quest plot hook. Hello.
Yeah, the end of that session, what we actually settled on was that one of the members of the party, the dragon sorcerer, they retired their character to stay behind and raise these dragons in a place so they would hopefully turn out good. And that character was out of the campaign.
Whoa.
Just straight up stopped. Like that they reached the end of their story.
Though. Yeah, wild.
Not because they expected it, but because duty called, you know.
Yeah,
this was
fair
a
enough.
quest they were called to achieve. And we got to visit that character in the future, and we had some like heartfelt talks like as we departed, and we're like, you know, best of luck with your mission. And best of luck, and they wished us best of luck on our quest to complete.
I love that though.
Yeah, and like towards the end of the campaign, we got to like visit them, see how they were doing, and the dragons were like, you know, feisty little toddlers and all that.
Aw, that's so cute.
It was, yeah.
Oh, I love that. Honestly, it's the coolest like retirement of a character if there ever was one. Like, oh, sorry, man, I can't adventure. I gotta raise these 3 evil dragons on my own.
Yeah. Turn them to the side of good while I still can, you know?
Imagine like 20 years later where he still has this fucking quest that he's continuing because these dragons just keep being there. And then he is the owner of 3 fucking cool dragons that hopefully are good. That's freaking wild. Talking about myths and stuff and legends. I mean...
Yeah, you call him up. He's like, oh, yeah, Petruchio and Mercutio, they're doing fine. But Evangelis, she's kind of a problem lately. She disappears a couple of nights and the farmers complain about it. I really got to reel that in. You know?
Yeah, for sure. This is a dragon management game now, and I'm here for it.
A dragon management game. I love it. A dragon
There must be
ranch.
an audience for that somewhere. You would play it.
Absolutely. I would play it. I would absolutely play it. If there was like an Animal Crossing, but you raised dragons, send that my way. Get me on that beta, please.
Yep.
I'll play the life out of it. Mm-hmm. But I guess not much else to say on this topic. I could ramble for a very long time about dragons. Don't test me, you know? But, you know, I just wanted to highlight the value they could add to a story, the innate understanding of everyone at the table, if you're using this in D&D, of how important these creatures are. There's already a story behind them. You don't have to talk them up, but your players will know how special they are, like right from the jump.
Yep, for sure.
It's one of those things that are just truly classic. And I've never had a bad dragon session. I've run like a good half dozen of them where my players meet the dragon, and it always is a spectacular session.
So fun.
So
I love
good.
it. Yeah.
If I could recommend any dragon related media, obviously How to Train Your Dragon, but you know, gosh, Dragon Tales. Is that so lame?
Isn't there also the one, or is that maybe the one you're saying? No, I think that's different. There was one thing about
it's a PBS.
Sorry, my
Dragon
brain
Tales
is
is
like,
a PBS series for kids.
I mean, like an animated show where like a guy can turn into a dragon. Jake Long. Is that the name
American
of it?
Dragon.
American Dragon. That's what it was.
Voiced
that
by
was
Dante
fun.
Bosco.
I watched that one.
Voice of Zuko.
What?
Yeah.
No, wait.
Yeah, the main character, Jake Long, American Dragon, he's Dante Bosco.
Oh my god. Okay, I need to like rewatch this now.
The American Dragon.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, you can recognize that voice a mile away. But
not me.
I guess it's been so long. It's something you come back to and you're like, wait a second, that voice.
It's so funny because
I know that voice.
Dutch voiceovers, it's like a tiny community. We have little people, but specifically in the voiceover world. So all these animated shows, I watched them in Dutch.
Love it.
And then at
It's
some
so
point,
funny.
I realized that a lot of the like voices were the same between the different series that I watched, and it
all the same
wrecked
studio.
my brain. Because then, you know, Bloom from Wings Club, which is the main like ginger redhead that I obviously love because I'm a ginger, had the same voice as Stella, the blonde-haired one, in Totally Spies. And I was like, wait, no.
You're supposed to be the red-haired one.
Yeah.
You can't just do that.
They had like totally different personalities, and it was like, that doesn't work. Like, the voice is the same. I don't understand. Like now,
funny.
because I've watched so many like Dutch animations and stuff, and I started to recognize them more, I can hear them in, you know, commercials and in other series, and it's the absolute worst.
That.
And there's like a random commercial about, I don't know, shaving cream or something. And then I hear one of the fairies from Wings Club saying, oh, it's the best shaving cream that you ever heard. And I'm like, what? No. It's awful. It's a curse that I will not be able to get rid of for my life.
I love when I can recognize an extra in a commercial and be like, wait a second, you're not just some random person off the street. You're a hired actor.
You did a cool
thing. I know you from Cyber Chasing.
The most random thing. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. And I love the idea of like a Dutch cabal that has control over all the voice acting.
I mean, I feel like it's like maybe 30 people. That's it.
They get everything. Absolutely. That's so funny to me.
Yeah, it's wild.
But yeah, dragons, check them out in literally everything. There's nothing else to say.
Amazing plug. Cool.
Great. Let's wrap up this podcast as we always do with a prompt.
Yes.
We are tackling a story that we will improvise, I suppose. I don't know what the prompt is yet. That's kind of the fun of it. You are giving the prompt today to me, and I am not yet ready for it, but I can be.
You are, I think, ready for it. After the things that we discussed, I feel like we had like a good build up.
Sure.
Because I was thinking, obviously, a quest is almost a literal prompt. So I was like, why don't we make like a cool version of the sword in the stone? That is the most classic quest sort of ending of a quest, I feel, but doesn't necessarily require someone worthy. Or maybe something happened and now someone else has this sword. Maybe we can build a cool magic item that sort of tilts this thing on its head.
Oh, I got the perfect one. This is
bring it on.
Start. I'm already so ready for this. Wow. First of all, you said a cool version of Sword in the Stone. Sword of the Stone's already cool. Actually.
Oh well, okay.
Already cool.
I mean, Jesus, sorry.
Here's the twist I'm going to put on it. Sword stuck in the stone, right? Everybody has a hard time pulling the sword from the stone. Some dude
that's kind of the deal.
who is egregiously strong. Almost as a bane to himself, egregiously strong.
Okay.
And doesn't quite like boast about. He's not an ego kind of character at all. He's someone who loves helping lift cows and herd sheep.
Yeah, sure.
And chases after the shepherd dog. This guy
love him already.
Tries to pull the sword from the stone, and he pulls the sword all right, but he also pulls the stone. He just yoinks it out of the ground. He wields the sword in his hand. He gleams in the sun's light, but the stone is still attached to it. And no one is brave enough to tell him that he's not the chosen hero.
Oh no! Oh, that's the funniest shit. Oh no, buddy. I mean, technically, he's pulled it out.
Yeah,
including the stone. He pulled the stone out of the mountain, I guess.
the story is called "The Sword and the Stone."
Yeah,
and the great quest he sent on.
Not to be mistaken for the sword in the stone that everybody mistakes it for. Yeah,
yeah. Not to be confused. So the great quest that he sent on is that he has to find something strong enough to break the stone on to free the sword.
Wow, this is getting into like troubling limitations of like where does the impossibility of pulling the sword out of the stone, like where's the boundary of that? Like, can you break the stone around it and then the sword is just free also? But the stone is not like magic, the sword is magic. Yeah. No?
I want to believe the stone is also magical. That there's some inherent, like nobody respects the stone. The stone is actually also magical, but everybody loves to talk about the sword.
Name. Yeah.
Gosh, they love to talk about the sword, but nobody ever talks about the stone.
I feel like there's one side sort of venture of this story, or maybe like a good or bad sequel. I would appreciate both. Where, you know, the hero pulls the sword and the stone out of it, and it's just like, yes, I freed the stone. Oh, wasn't that the thing? And then he just continues to use this sword stone weapon as like the most inventive, powerful weapon in the world because the stone is also magical and nobody realized.
Yeah, and every fight is premised with the fact like, oh, that looks strong enough to break the stone on.
Yep.
Like every enemy is like
a guard's
you
head.
could break the stone. Yeah.
Endless possibility.
Yeah, I need this plucky sidekick to be like a geologist. He's just enamored with the stone.
Yeah, for
not
sure.
The sword.
For sure.
Like, it's like, that's the most wondrous stone I've ever seen. Please, I must detail its adventures.
Or he's like the one like lame-o that was like, but the stone is also important, you guys. It's part of the legend. It's part of the name. And everyone is like, no, of course it's not.
Yeah.
Like, what are you even talking about? The sword, obviously, is the magic part. And he's like, no, I refuse. And then maybe he's lying in wait for like years until people realize that actually the stone was part of the equation.
Right. He's the one member of the Stone fan club who like has read about its like true name and where it comes from. And the travesty that was some great hero stabbing the stone with his paltry sword. You know, what a mess. What a mistake to ruin this great stone with this terrible
this great
sword.
Boulder.
There's actually a terrible, like it's the stone was part of like an ancient magical golem. And this hero to fell the beast stabbed this evil sword into this great holy stone. And they were united for the rest of eternity.
I feel like, honestly, what if it was just like a regular stone? And then this one weird dude is just like, but the stone's in the name. I think it's important. You guys, I'll like devote my life to this. And then the whole world around it is like, no, of course not. And then this one super strong dude is actually like pulling the stone free. And the geologist is like, I told you so. Didn't I tell you? I feel like
the stone just ends up being incredibly mundane.
Yeah, it's super mundane. But because it's stuck in this super magic sword, it keeps being like hit and doing awesome stuff.
Right.
Because this one guy that's super strong just lashes out with like a boulder on his sword.
Got it. And clearly, because this is a world building podcast, we have to world build.
Oh, yeah. Excuse me.
A great foundational truth of this world is that masonry does not yet exist. Nobody has ever worked stone before. So the knowledge does not exist. Yeah. It cannot be carved out. Nobody has ever tried to break stone before.
There's no broken stone in this world ever. Cool.
Not a single broken stone.
Yeah, sure.
So yes, this is the sword and the stone.
So then the hero, the strong guy, is actually the one that is supposedly almost through this stone and is like almost the pioneering,
right?
I guess, masonry worker.
I need his name to be Mason. I need it to be Mason for this story.
Yeah, of course. At this point, yeah, there's no other way.
Yeah, fantastic.
Awesome. I would read this. Yeah.
I would absolutely read this.
It's almost cooler than dragons, almost.
Right. Yes. If there's anyone out there looking for a hero just like this, just like a very strong hero that kind of parodies medieval fantasy, sure. you have to read Helk. It is Helck. Helk. Yeah. It's a manga where the main character is strong and dumb, and he achieves everything through his strong dumbness, and it is just a wonder to behold. He's truly just a fantastic, great character.
Wow.
I'll recommend that to you if you got time to read a manga anytime.
Sure.
Soon. Just read the first couple chapters.
Yeah, put it in
and you'll get it. You'll get it.
Okay. I will be growing as a person for reading this.
Yes,
awesome.
It'll change your life. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not enough dragons, but it's good enough.
Does the job.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning into this podcast. This is going to be a quick old wrap up. If you love quests, if you love dragons, you love dragons in quests, there's a game for you out there called Dragon Quest. But besides that, thank you so much for tuning in. If this has inspired you to build worlds of your own or tell stories of your own, we're doing our job. That's exactly what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
I hope you have a lot of fun creating these wondrous worlds in your mind and sharing it to the people around you.
Or to us.
Or to us, yeah. Please contact us if you got some good stories.
We love to hear about your weird dragons.
Of course, tell us about all your weird dragons. I'd love to hear about your weird dragons. Send to us at yourriversarewrong@gmail.com. That's yourriversarewrong@gmail.com. And always remember, when you're building your worlds out there, always remember our namesake, our Gmail, what we talk about at the end of every episode.
The one and only thing.
Your rivers are wrong.
Yeah, sorry.
Have a good one. Sorry. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Your Rivers Are Wrong. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes that you'd like to hear us cover, feel free to contact us at yourriversarewrong@gmail.com. Our intro and outro music is written by Maarten Schellekens. Thanks for that. And again, thank you so much for listening. We hope to see you at the next one.